Everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So we've got the new handicap marks out, and there's a few that have caught my eye. And I thought we'd start off with a race that I said I'd look at the whole field, because they were so closely knit at the finish. 11th place, Miss Jungle Cat finished 7 lengths behind the winner. But if we go to say Maggie's Way, who was ninth, she was only 3 3/4 lengths behind the winner. Now, on this day, obviously, it was a listed race, so they all carried the same weight. They all carried 9 stone 2, despite having, obviously, different handicap marks. And they've all been, a lot of them have been reassessed, and there's a few changes that have caught my eye in this race. So the winner went from 78 to 95, which was justified. You know, she won a listed race. She beat horses much higher rated, Mystic Pearl. Stenton Glider stays on 103. Stays on 103. The third horse, Bridestones, stays on 93. Fourth place, Crystallium, goes up £1 to 93. For fifth place, Car Savina, 97 down to 94. Baxidar, 87 to 95. That was a bit unlucky to go up £8 considering she was quite comfortably beaten. Well, she was beaten far enough, to be honest. Magical Sunset dropped 2 to 100. Kelsabila dropped 2 to 92 from 94. Maggie's Way stays on 84. Lady Olara goes from 90 to 87. And last place, Miss Jungle Cat, is moved from 85 to 83. So a lot of them roughly stayed the same, went up a few pound. And I think the two horses that really caught my eye in all of this, in these 11, based on the new handicap marks, or marks that didn't move, are Bridestones, who we believe is better than a 93 horse. So I think she can certainly win a handicap, and I'm hoping that's where they might go with Bridestones. I hope they go to this race. Where is it? It's this race here. The East Dean Handicap Stakes, 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds, rated 86 to 105. So she's rated 93, so she gets in comfortably. And yeah, I just think that would be a race to go and actually get a win. I think rated 93, she was probably she was more forward than I was expecting. And with a furlong to go, I actually thought she was going to go forward and go and win the race. I thought she was actually going to go and win it comfortably. She didn't quite pick up as strongly as I was hoping. And with that in mind, the drop back to 7 wouldn't be an issue at all. And yeah, I think she's very interesting if she goes back into handicap company. You know, she could definitely win a listed race, but what's the harm in going back into handicap company on the 5th of August and then going again after that for a listed or group race? The second horse that caught my eye was Maggie's Way, who went forward and was far too keen at the front. She stays on 84. Now, if it had been a handicap, she'd have been getting £8 plus from all of her rivals in the race. Or now, she would be getting £8 plus from all of those who finished in front of her. She was only beaten 3 and a bit lengths. She was far too keen. And this was probably just a step too far. Drop her back to a handicap company in a race that she can actually win, and I think she'll go really close, to be honest. And there was a really obvious one for me. It was this, I say obvious one, I don't even know which one I'm talking about now. It's the 3-year-old Skybet Go Racing in Yorkshire Summer Festival Handicap. 7 furlongs, 219 yards, so just under a mile. 3-year-olds for horses rated 66 to 85. Now, Maggie's Way is rated 84, so she would be taking on much, much inferior opposition than what she did here. You know, she was against some quality horses in this race. She could drop comfortably for this race at Redcar, and I think she would win it, you know, quite comfortably again and go up, then be heading towards the 90s with a handicap mark. Go back, get another win under her belt, help her settle as well. Yeah, this one, I mean, if she turns up here, I think she would win this quite comfortably, to be honest. It's a race that she can definitely go close in. The next race that I looked at a few of them was the Coral Challenge. Perotta went up £4 to 98. And all three of those behind Uzo stayed on 94, Dutch Decoy stayed on 90, and Revic stayed on 97. Now, in this race, I thought Uzo was the one to be on. Bit frustrating because we'd highlighted Perotto as well as being well handicapped. So 2 from the race, and they finished first and second. They're all likely to go to Goodwood, aren't they? They're all going to go to this race here, the Golden Mile. Uzo was 4th last year. Revic was 3rd. And I imagine we will also see Perotto run there. It's a good handicap. I still think Latam's going to take all the beating, though. Of those from the race at Sandown, I would definitely be looking at Revic more than Uzo and Dutch Decoy and Perotto, to be honest. I thought he was unlucky last year. Revic running on through them late on. I think he'll do the same, but I think Latam might be gone by then. So, yeah, if Latam doesn't run, then Revic may well be one of our bets for that day. But at the moment, Latam is going to be a strong bet on that day, to be honest. But that's where they're all going to go, I imagine. Moving on to the next horse that caught my eye was Garcia. Now, Garcia went up £1 to 100, which was a surprise because I actually thought they might drop him £1 to 98. And then getting in the E-ball was going to be all tricky to work out how to do it. Potentially going via the handicap at Goodwood over 1.6 miles. But I just wonder whether, in hindsight, I've looked into this a bit more, and I wonder whether the trip is what's beating Garcia. He didn't run well at Ascot. He didn't run well in the E-ball over 1.5 and 1.6 miles, those 2 races. I wonder whether he doesn't quite get that trip and he only wants 1.5 miles. With that in mind, there's an obvious race for him. It's this 1 mile 3, 188 yard handicap, 188 yards handicap, the Sky Bet Handicap Stakes on Friday the 25th of August at York. It's a feature handicap. I think he would take all of the beating. He can certainly win a race of 100. It might just be the trip was catching him out last season, towards the end of last season. He needed the run on his first run back. Then didn't stay at Ascot, dropped back to the suitable trip and ran a really good race. If he gets a clear run, I actually think he wins that as well. So yeah, I think Garcia for this race at York, the Sky Bet Handicap Stakes, I really like that one, to be honest. Moving on to the next horse that caught my eye, also came from that race with Garcia, and that was Yukon Glen, who probably found this trip at his age a bit too short. Plus, he got out the back and could never get involved. He's dropped £1 to 98, and I mean, it's obvious where they go with him, isn't it? They go to this race here, the Coral Summer Handicap, the race that I don't think Garcia will run in now. So, why do you run here? We were 3rd last year off a £4 higher mark. You were beaten by the in-form Beige Door and Trawlerman. Now, Trawlerman obviously went on to win the E-Ball. So that was really good form that day. Yeah, and Yukon Glen surely comes back here. And I would be more than happy to forgive him that run, because it was a poor run at Haydock, but I just don't think things worked. Whereas at Ayr, I thought he'd ran a really good race. Similarly at Musselburgh over the 1.6 miles trip, or 1.5 miles and yards. So yeah, I think the trip at this 1.6 miles trip at Goodwood really suits him, and I think he will run a really big race in the Coral Summer Handicap towards the end of the month, towards the beginning of next month, sorry. The next horse that caught my eye was Mr. Wagyu, who dropped in class really to go to Thirsk, and it didn't quite work, or it didn't work at all. He finished 7th. Very disappointing. But that does mean he's dropped another £1 to 94. Well, this time last year, he was finishing 4th at Ascot, Royal Ascot, and then he went straight to the Curragh after that, and he won a big handicap. That came off an Irish handicap mark of 90, having previously finished 4th off 96. So I reckon he was 98. It's tricky to work out. I think he went up to 98 after Ascot. So he effectively be running off a lower mark. And he also went back to the Curragh in September, you can see here, and he finished 3rd off 103, or an Irish mark of 103. He's got to go for this race again. July the 22nd, so there's still 11 days. The Paddy Power Scurry Handicap is a 6 furlong handicap. It's great prize money, and surely that's where Mr. Wagyu turns up. 2 runs at the Curragh, a win, and a 3rd off higher marks than what he will be running off. The next horse, 3 more to go now, that caught my eye was Came From The Dark, who dropped another £2 to 87. Now, they did go to the Curragh with Came From The Dark, and it didn't work. But, you know, at least they made an effort. The only thing I would say about Came From The Dark, they seem to be running him at the moment here, there and everywhere, or here, there and anywhere sort of thing. They're going, yeah, there's a 5 furlong handicap, that'll do. They're not really, it doesn't look like they're really looking into where he's run well before even. I mean, I was surprised that they didn't come back to Sandown for the group race. I'm hoping that they do think about it next time. And there's this race at Ascot on Saturday the 29th of July, the Whispering Angel Handicap Stakes. It's a 5 furlong race, and he will get in off his mark of 87. And if we actually look at his Ascot form, he finished 8th in October 2022, but that was in a listed race. And he's also finished 2nd back here behind, let's have a look, it was a good horse who went on to be much better. Pendleton, I think. Was it Pendleton? Let's just load up the race. Yes, behind Pendleton. Now, that came off a mark of 90. So running off 87 in a handicap, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. He's got to go for this race at in end of July. What's that, 18 days from now? Yeah, and I think everything looks good for him. There's also a race in August where he could come back for the Shergar Cup Dash, I think it's called. Again, it's over 5 furlongs at Ascot. That would certainly suit him as well. 2 to go, and these two are both getting well handicapped, or are now very well handicapped. So the first horse is Escobar, who dropped £3 for his run at Sandown in the handicap. Disappointing, never got involved. Dropped to a mark of 104. Now, that certainly starts to give him a chance, or does give him a chance. He was 2nd in this race. Excuse me. 2nd in this race, the Clipper Logistics, in August of 2022. That came off a mark of 105. He's now 104. I know he's 9, but he's still showing some good form. You know, it wasn't that long ago that he was finishing 3rd at Thirsk. And I think this time of year, the end of the season, is when you certainly can get him to come good. You can see here we've got a couple of seconds in August and September, and then a win actually on his first start of the season in May. But then again last season, 2nd in August, 3rd in August, the 3rd in September, 8th in September, and then winning in October. I think towards the end of the season, his handicap marks start to come down and he starts to get well handicapped again. And I think we'll definitely see him in this race at York. I can see him in all of those races that he ran well in last year. York, Goodwood, the Air Gold Cup again, and then, you know, potentially even ending his career at Ascot in October in the race that he won last year. But he's definitely one that will start to or now be making my equations, or looking at him in his next few races. And the final horse I want to talk about, we have talked about him before. It's Silver Samurai, who never really got involved at Windsor. Gaps didn't open and he didn't really make much of an effort. But he's now dropped another £3 to 90, and that means he's very, very well handicapped. This time last year, you can see here, he was 3rd at York in August, and he was 3rd at York in October, and he was 7th, but an eye-catching 7th in July. Now, when he was an eye-catching 7th, if we have a look, he went off the 4-1 favourite. That actually came off a mark of 98 or 99. 98 or 99. Let me just check that. 98. That came off a mark of 98. So he's only rated 90 now. So he's £8 lower than when he was sent off 4-1 favourite for this race last year, the Sky Bet Dash. Surely that's where he goes again. And then goes to all of those races that he ran in. The York, back to Ascot, back to York. His York form is very good. He's nicely handicapped now. He just needs things to go right for him. But when they do, and I think they will, I think he will go very, very close in a race in the near future at York. So there's my thoughts for the handicap marks. I'm definitely interested in Bridestones. I'd like to see her back in a handicap. Similarly for Maggie's Way, but in a much easier handicap than what that listed race would have been for her. You can then see all of those from the Coral Challenge going to that race at Goodwood, but I'd still be keen on Latam. Garcia, really like Garcia, to be honest, for the Skybet Handicap Stakes. I think if there's one from this video that I would be most interested in, it's definitely Garcia. Yukon Glen, surely going to Goodwood as well. I mean, that was good form last season. He's nicely handicapped now. He would definitely have a big chance. Mr. Wagyu surely goes back to the Curragh as well. Won it last year off a higher mark. Came from the dark. I'm hoping connections finally go, let's go back to Ascot in a handicap. There's a nice one for him. When did I say it was? 29th of July. Escobar is well handicapped now. He's back down to a mark that's an achievable or a workable mark. Look out for him at York in the Clipper Logistics. And finally, Silver Samurai, I think, will also go to York for the Skybet Dash. Went a 4-1 favourite last year off an £8 higher mark. It almost worked with Garcia, who was running in the old Newton Cup after going off the 11-8 favourite the year before. I think if he'd got a clear run, he would have won. Let's hope Silver Samurai gets a clear run in the Skybet Dash, and I think he will go very, very close.